You follow all the Fengshui tips. You place your lucky coins, your crystals. You even burn sage on a new moon. But something still feels off. Your wealth flow isn't moving. Money comes in, then disappears. And maybe it's because of one thing. A wall, right behind your front door. It's one of the most ignored bad feng shui house signs. And yes, it blocks your abundance before it even enters. I didn't notice it at first. Honestly, I thought my home had great energy. I followed all the feng shui basics. I kept it clean, lit a candle at night, placed a small money bowl near the window. But deep down, something still felt stuck. Like the wealth was trying to come in, but kept bouncing back. It wasn't until I visited a friend's house and felt how the air moved right when the door opened that I realized mine didn't. That's when I noticed it. A wall, quietly sitting there, right behind the front door, like a silent no to any chi trying to enter. So hey, if you've ever felt your feng shui is almost right, but your wealth isn't flowing, stay with me. I've got more hidden signs you'll want to check in this playlist. Let's go. You know that moment when you walk into a house and something just feels stuck? Yeah. It hit me the second I moved in. I thought it was just the furniture needing a refresh. But turns out, it was the wall behind my front door. The one I never questioned. The one that quietly stopped everything. So here's what happened. My front door opens, and bam, there's a solid wall right in front of it. No entryway, no open view, no path to flow. Just a blank, boring, very beige wall. And honestly, I didn't think twice. I mean, so many American homes are built like this, right? But oh, the more I lived in that space, the more it started to mess with me. I'd open the door after a long day, expecting comfort, but I'd feel this weird hesitation, like something was pressing pause before I could even step inside. My chest would tighten just a little. My shoulders would stay stiff. It was so subtle, but so real. According to Feng Shui, the front door is the mouth of Qi. It's where energy, luck, and wealth enter your life. But when a wall blocks that path right away, it's like welcoming money, then slamming the door in its face. And that's exactly what it felt like. Jobs felt stuck, payments delayed, clients unsure. I kept pushing and pushing, but something just wouldn't budge. And suddenly, I realized it wasn't just about effort. It was about flow. I didn't knock the wall down or anything wild. What I did was shift the energy. First, I added a round mirror to reflect and redirect the chi. Then, I placed a soft rug and a plant right by the door to soften the stop, to signal you can land here. And just like that, the space opened. Even visually, it felt like a breath of fresh air. No more energetic collision. A few weeks later, I noticed the smallest thing. I'd come home and exhale, fully, like my body knew it was okay now, that it didn't have to brace itself at the door. It was subtle, but magical. My neighbor came by once and said, "Your house feels more inviting now. I don't know what you did, but I like it." I just smiled, because I felt it too. And ever since I made that gentle shift, wow, it's like the energy just knows where to go now. It flows in, softly, but confidently. Almost like it's been waiting for an invitation. Unexpectedly, the house started to feel warmer, not in temperature, but in presence. Clients would call, not just once, but consistently. Emails came in with phrases like, "We were thinking of you." Those little words, they felt like sunshine after a week of cloudy silence. I began noticing how money didn't have to arrive in huge, loud waves. Sometimes it trickled in, quietly, steadily, through unexpected places. A refund here, a friend repaying something I'd long forgotten, a random brand collaboration that just landed in my inbox. Like what? Even my body, oh my body, responded. I'd walk through that front door and just melt. My shoulders no longer tense, my breathing deeper. There was a calm, rhythmic hum to the space. It didn't shout success, it whispered support. And that whisper? That's what made me trust the shift. Sometimes, all it takes is giving energy a place to land, and that's just the beginning. Because once the chi walks in, you need to guide it deeper, not confuse it. Let's talk about that next. You know that feeling when something just slips away? Like you almost had it, but then poof, gone. That's what this loop is about. Most people think their house feels open or airy when they can see straight through. But in Fengshui, that see-through layout, it's a silent leak, especially when your front door stares directly at the back door. For years, I thought my place had a nice flow. You open the front door, bam, clear view to the patio. Sunlight, breeze. I loved it, until I didn't. Something felt off. I'd clean, I'd rearrange. I even added lucky charms, but still, money came in like a whisper and left like a storm. So fast, so slippery. It wasn't until I learned Feng Shui that I saw it. My energy was walking straight in and right out the back. No pause, no anchor. Oh gosh, I was basically hosting a red carpet for my wealth to exit. I'd get paid, and then bills would pile up. New client, then sudden car repair. One step forward, 3 steps drained. It was maddening. The house felt beautiful but unrooted, like a hotel. People came, they left. Opportunities passed through like guests, never staying long enough to matter. Even friends would drop by and say, "Wow, it's so open." But I started hearing it differently. Open, as in unguarded. So I did something ridiculously simple. I placed a tall plantain with big, rounded leaves near the back exit. Not to block the light, but to hold the energy. Then, I added a rug with a grounding color between the front and back, door soft brown, with a hint of deep green. And just like that, the house exhaled. The breeze still came in, but the pull stopped. It felt like the money could finally arrive and say, "Okay, I think I'll stay a while." 6. Mini story. I remember one morning, I stood barefoot on that rug, sipping warm lemon water. The sun peeked in, and I just smiled. There was no wind that day, but somehow, the air held itself. It didn't rush. That week, an old invoice got paid, and a neighbor offered me a gig I didn't even ask for. It wasn't huge, but it was the kind of grounded, steady flow I'd been longing for. And all because the energy lingered. Oh wow, I still remember that subtle shift. At first, it was so quiet I almost missed it. But day by day, something in the house felt calmer, like the walls were finally listening. Instead of that odd rush of wind, there was this soft stillness. The kind that made you breathe a little deeper. The space between the front and back doors, it stopped feeling like a hallway and started feeling like a place. That very week, I kid you not, I had 2 payments clear that were pending for ages. Out of nowhere, one client even messaged, "I just remembered I owed you this." I stared at the screen like, wait, what? It was surreal. But it didn't stop there. Groceries stopped feeling like a burden. Little things, a gift card in the mail, a friend covering coffee began to sprinkle in. Not massive wins, but soft, consistent signs that something had settled. It was as if money had stopped running through my house, and finally decided to rest its feet here, to stay a while. And oh, that feeling so comforting, so warm, like the house had finally learned how to hold. And maybe, just maybe, so had I. When the wind has no walls, it never sings. But when it meets resistance, it finds rhythm. Let's go deeper. Because there's one spot people never suspect, and yet it drains energy faster than anything. Sometimes, it's not the big things. It's that tiny object you've walked past 1,000 times, never knowing it was holding your money energy hostage. I used to think clutter only mattered when it was visible. But oh no. Turns out, the worst energy traps are often neatly hidden, tucked behind closed doors, like secrets. So here's what I didn't realize. I had this old decorative bowl, sitting quietly on top of a shelf in the back hallway. It was chipped, just slightly, and filled with random keys, coins, and paper clips. You know, junk drawer energy, but in a bowl. And I told myself, it's just temporary. But weeks went by, then months, and it just stayed there, collecting everything. And energetically, it was holding on to stuck thoughts, unmade decisions, and broken momentum. I didn't even think of it as bad feng shui. But that bowl, wow, it was like a magnet for energetic noise. Every time I walked past that hallway, I felt this weird pause, like something clung to me. I'd head into work feeling mentally cluttered, even if I couldn't name why. Emails piled up, projects stalled. It's like my whole flow hit a molasses moment. And still, I never thought it could be that little bowl. One afternoon, I just stood there, staring at it, and I asked myself, why am I keeping this? I took the bowl down, emptied it, held it in my hand, and just exhaled. I replaced it with a small ceramic dish-a-gift from a friend with smooth edges and a clean base. And inside, I placed 3 shiny coins and a drop of rosemary oil. Simple, intentionally simple. And that small shift reset everything. That night, something unexpected happened. I slept through the night for the first time in weeks. No racing thoughts, no midnight scrolling, just deep, steady sleep. The next morning, I felt pulled to write. My words flowed. Ideas came without friction. I sat at my desk and just created, effortlessly. And I hadn't done that in so long. From that day forward, my space felt lighter. That hallway didn't feel weird anymore, it felt open. Emails got answered. Deadlines got met. Clients booked sessions again. And when I checked my bank account that Friday, there was a quiet moment of, oh, it's working. Not a windfall, but a smooth, soft yes from the universe. Like money, energy was finally saying, I can breathe here. Sometimes the smallest shift unclogs the biggest flow. Let's go deeper, because there's one more sign that almost scared me when I found out. You ever walk past something and not really see it? Yeah, that was me with the shelf near the door. I always thought clutter was about what's on the shelf, but sometimes it's the shelf itself, especially when it's placed where energy should be breathing. Right by the entrance to my living room, there was this narrow, shelf-simple wooden, barely noticeable. I had placed it there to hold things like a candle, a few books, and sometimes my bag. It seemed helpful, but over time, I realized I had built a wall without meaning to. It broke the line of sight from the front door. It divided the room in two, and worst of all, it stopped the flow of chi the moment you entered. Instead of inviting energy in, it made the house feel like it was holding its breath. Every time someone walked in, they paused just for a second. They'd look to the side, unsure where to go. The air felt stuck. There was this strange stillness in the room, like even the light didn't know where to land. My days felt fragmented, like conversations never flowed, ideas got cut off halfway. I didn't realize it then, but that shelf had become a subtle block in how people moved, and how energy moved too. That morning, I remember just sitting there, on the edge of the couch, staring at that shelf. Nothing dramatic was on it, just a dusty candle, an old photo frame, and a pile of unopened mail. But the longer I looked, the heavier it felt. Not physically heavy, emotionally heavy. Like it had absorbed all the to-dos I never did. All the conversations that never quite started. All the tension that quietly lived in that room. So, I stood up. And without overthinking it, I began. First, I took everything off slowly, piece by piece. I wiped the wood with a warm cloth, feeling like I was wiping away weeks of mental fog. Then, I stepped back, and I whispered, "Let's breathe again." I removed the shelf completely, filled the holes, let the wall go bare, and the sunlight finally reached across the room without hitting a barrier. I replaced the energy anchor with something soft, a round crystal bowl filled with pink salt and 3 coins, sitting low on a side table nearby. It didn't shout for attention. It simply flowed, and right then, the air shifted. I swear, even the plants near the window perked up. It was as if the room had been waiting for permission to be free again. That weekend, my sister came over. She walked in, paused, and then smiled. "What did you change?" she asked. I shrugged. "Just took something away." She nodded slowly, then said, "Well, it feels easier to be here." And that night, we laughed over dinner, like we hadn't in months. The room held our joy, our stories, and for once, nothing felt stuck. From that day, I noticed small things. People stayed longer. My thoughts moved smoother. I started and finished projects. Even my sleep felt deeper. It wasn't a dramatic shift, but it was honest, consistent, peaceful. The energy wasn't just flowing again. It was inviting. Sometimes letting go of a little thing opens up space for everything else to breathe. And just when I thought I had cleared it all, I found one last sign. The one hiding in plain sight. You know how people say plants bring life into a room? Well, not all of them do. I always believed that as long as something was green, it had to be good feng shui. But what I learned, some plants don't just sit quietly in the corner. They take up space. They trap light. They hold energy instead of letting it move. There was this tall indoor plant by my front door. Big, leafy, dramatic. I thought it looked fancy, like something out of a magazine. But every time I walked past it, I felt this odd tension, like I was squeezing through a narrow hallway. even when the space was wide open. Its leaves drooped low, dust gathered underneath, and the pot cracked, dry soil, overwatered roots. But I kept telling myself, it's still alive. I didn't realize it had become a subtle block, not just to movement, but to money, energy. Every entrance into the home felt a little off, and I never once thought to question the plant. Guests would pause awkwardly at the door. Packages would pile up because the delivery guy couldn't quite reach the bell. Even I started entering the house from the side door more often. That plant became a quiet guard, not welcoming, just standing there. And energetically, it kept good energy out. It dulled the light, both literally and spiritually. The house felt dim, even when the sun was high. And my days, they dragged. I finally moved it, not to a different room out of the house entirely. And wow, the moment it was gone, the light changed. It didn't just get brighter. It felt warmer, gentler, like the front door could finally breathe. I brought in a smaller plant instead. Soft leaves, a rounded ceramic pot, nothing tall or imposing. And just beside it, I placed a Fengshui mirror small, discreet angled to reflect the light in. That one change opened the entire space. Even the door swung smoother. I hadn't realized how much energy was getting trapped by just one overgrown plant. My neighbor stopped by a few days later. She blinked, looked around, and said, "Did you repaint or something? Your place feels calm." I laughed. "Nope, just moved a plant." But it wasn't just a plant. It was a decision. To stop letting stuck energy take up prime space. And in that decision, something softened in me too. I found myself humming while cleaning, paying bills early, sleeping deeper, and smiling at the door every time I opened it. The shift was gentle, but steady. Money started arriving on time. Unexpected checks. Clients who hadn't replied in months suddenly reappeared. And the space, especially near the door, felt inviting, like the house was finally saying, "Welcome back. Let's begin again. Not everything green brings growth. Let's wrap this up with something simple. 3 actions you can take right now to reset your front door energy." 1. Wipe your front door handle both sides. Yes, both. Inside where you pull life in, and outside where the world meets you. Use a soft cloth, maybe lemon water or salt. Gently, intentionally. Let it shine again like it's saying, "Come in, abundance, I'm ready." 2. Clear the path just inside the door. Pause and look around. Is there a pile of shoes? A bag that always sits there? Even a plant that's too big? Try softening that space. Open it up. Let light move through. You're not just making room for air. You're making space for momentum. 3. Place a quiet object of welcome. Doesn't need to be loud. A small bowl with 3 shiny coins. A gentle wind chime. Even a clean mirror angled softly. Something that whispers, "This home allows. This space receives." Sometimes, you don't know what's wrong with a space until your body starts to feel it first. You sigh more. You pause longer at the door. You forget what you walked in to do. And you think maybe it's just stress, or age, or clutter. But what if it's the space itself, holding that pause? For me, it started with a wall, then a bowl, then the weight of objects I thought were just decorative. One by one, they told a story I hadn't listened to in years. And when I did, something began to move again. Not fast, not loud, but deeply, quietly like breath, returning to a room. So hey, if this spoke to you, even a little, leave me a feedback in the comments. Tell me what part of your home feels stuck. And if you haven't already, check out the rest of our Feng Shui Red Flags playlist. It's full of those little things we don't notice, until they've already shaped everything.